Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, host of the show, and I'm joined today by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. And we got a new guy that we brought aboard today, and we're looking forward to having him join us every Thursday with myself and Doug. And his name is Kyle Hunter, one of the best handicappers you'll find anywhere in the country, and he is a handicapper over at gamblersworld.net, which is our sponsor, gamblersworld.com, gamblersworld.net, whatever you prefer. One side's the video side, the other side's the pick section, but that's our sponsor. And our sponsor is running a NFL progressive pick'em contest, 18 weeks of the competition. Every regular season game, you're going to make a choice on who wins straight up. And it costs you absolutely nothing to enter. So just go to Gamblers World and enter the contest. Click on the graphic there that shows the contest. A registration form will come up, and $500 guaranteed minimum for first place in that competition. $100 progressive every week we put into the pool. And if somebody hits a perfect score, meaning they hit all 14 or 16 or whatever, how many games are scheduled that particular week in the NFL. It's a progressive system. So if it happens in week 4, you're going to get $400. And then we continue on, but we'll play the top 4 finishers at the end of the year in terms of total wins and points earned. So great thing there, folks, but make sure you chime in. Anyway, Kyle, welcome aboard, my friend. Long time admirer of yours, and again, can't speak enough for your handicapping prowess. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. It's good to be here with you. I've known Doug here for a long time. Ross, I've seen your work. It's very solid. Nice to get to know you better as well. And I'm glad to be here. You guys know that I'm a straight shooter. Honesty and transparency is most important to me. My long-term track record is great as well. But, doing things the right way is of utmost importance to me. And I know that's what you guys feel as well.
Absolutely. We sleep very well at night. Honesty and transparency and transparency, and integrity are something I really hold dear to my heart when it comes to this business, and I know you guys do as well. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross. And hey, here we go. Week 1. Okay, good stuff there. Oh, and Ross, by the way, this is up to you as we go along here. For those that don't know, I've been a longtime Notre Dame fan, and Kyle is a longtime Ohio State fan. And so, end of the month, I believe it might even be whatever the last Saturday of September is, Ohio State plays Notre Dame. So if you want to sign each of us that game, Ross, that'd be great. So you can get.
How about I sign it to myself and then let you guys chime in on your opinions? Yeah, that would be very interesting to hear. I wouldn't want to put that on either one of you guys because, a little bit of the loyalty might get involved, even though I know you're both unbiased when it comes to picking games. But it still makes it, there's a human element, right? Especially in a big game like that. It's not like Ohio State's playing Rutgers or Notre Dame's playing Navy. So that's going to be a well hyped matchup, and rightfully so. All right. We got 3 games we're going to cover today. Doug's going to take that barn burner, Northwestern and Rutgers, that will be played on Sunday the 2nd. Kyle's got a real good game, and I'm interested, and I'm sure Doug as well as you should be, you folks out there. LSU and Florida State, that's a Sunday night game on September 3rd. And I got the Monday night game, Clemson and Duke, on Monday, 9/4. Just a friendly reminder, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. There's no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda. You're just privy to some of the best sports betting information you'll find anywhere on the internet today. If you are watching on your PC, you'll see a WC logo standing for Winner Circle right in the bottom right-hand corner of your video box. Just click on that. If you're watching on your mobile device, which most of you are, there's a black subscribe button right underneath the video box. You just click on that. You're all set to go. And just one more step I'm going to ask you to do. If you go into your YouTube settings after you subscribe and you hit that notification alert bell for the Winner Circle Sports Betting channel, you'll be notified immediately upon any of our podcast going up on our channel. All right, let's get her going. Doug, I'm going to start with you. Northwestern and Rutgers. Rutgers is -6.5. The total here, 39.5. And like we were talking off air, extremely low total for a college football game. But between the rule changes this year and two what appear to be anemic offenses, I think the total is justified. But it doesn't matter what I think about this game. It most matters what you think.
Well, look, let's dive into it then. Now, this game is actually going to be on Sunday, and it's going to be the first game of the day at noon Eastern and 9 Pacific on CBS, because now that CBS is starting to take over, going away from the SEC, going to the Big Ten. And so, like I say, Northwestern, well, they had a lot of off-season shenanigans going on, and so the lack of institutional control put Pat Fitzgerald out of a job. The assistant coach has taken over, and it wasn't handled great by the athletic department. But on the field, we got a Northwestern team that last year was 1-7, and it seemed apparent to me, at least, that Pat Fitzgerald, he was losing his recruiting battles. The energy was going out of the program. Used to be this offense, in particular, the Wildcats offense, was known for really good offensive linemen, a strong running game. That has not been the case the last really couple of years, and unproven quarterbacks coming into this year, and very few difference makers on the offensive side of the ball. On the defense, let's just say it's somewhat better. The back seven is pretty solid. The defensive line, I should say, got some holes. Okay, not a lot of talent there. They got some size, not a lot of talent, and at least in my opinion, the depth is non-existent. Now, every year, and Ross, you guys might be more familiar with, or somewhat more familiar with this. Rutgers offense is upgraded its talent. Okay, at several positions. I don't know how many years that's been said, but it's been several. But I will tell you this: since 2016, the Scarlet Knights have only scored more than 20 points per game once. Okay, that was the COVID year, 2020, when they averaged 27 points. The biggest problems for this team is every year they really don't have a very good quarterback. The running backs, have not great often. Offensive line play, average. And I think the problem is, and I think going into this year is kind of the same thing. They really don't commit to anything. They don't really commit to really running the ball, and they really don't commit to it possibly passing the ball. Now, Greg Schiano is a very good defensive coach. This team last year was 37th overall in total defense. I would not be surprised if they're somewhere right around there. Now, as far as the point spread at 6.5, I can't trust either team myself personally that I would say would want to cover the spread. Now, as Ross mentioned, the total's at 39.5. That's down from 39.5, and it's down from 41. And even though that causes me some trepidation as to what to do with that one, I'm going to say there's going to be plenty of 3-and-outs in this game. I think we're going to see a lot of defense, not necessarily, and pretty poor offense in this Big Ten game. And Rutgers comes away with a 20-13 win, and I'm going to snag the under on this game because of that.
Doug is not going to let that low number scare him away, although he has trepidation.
I do, absolutely do.
Gotta love anybody with trepidation, right? I don't even know what that word means anyway. He likes the under 39.5. Kyle, a mess at Northwestern. Rutgers, a lot's been made about Coach Schiano and how great he did in his first tenure at Rutgers. And it hasn't translated yet to the second tenure. But people forget, Greg Schiano wasn't at Rutgers when Rutgers was in the Big Ten. Big difference, folks. Huge difference in the teams you go up against, the teams you're recruiting against. So, I mean, any thoughts in that regard, and any thoughts in particular on this matchup?
Listen, first, I would say that, most bettors are kind of scared off those really low unders or the high overs. If you look back over history, those have actually done pretty well, because sometimes it's hard for the odds makers to set a number low enough for certain games or high enough for other games. Sometimes people are scared off those when they shouldn't be. In this one, I think it'd be super hard to take an over. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to bet the over in a game like this unless you think there's going to be defensive touchdowns or something like that. And obviously, that's the risk when you take a really low under, is something like that can happen. I do agree with Doug, though, that every year we're told that Rutgers is going to be so much better on offense. They've got a new quarterback. They've got a guy that's going to be this much better. Gavin Wimsatt, their quarterback, was pretty highly recruited. And I know some of the magazines and stuff are saying he's going to be really good. He was 65 for 145 passing last year, 44.8%. I want to see it before I trust it. Maybe he will be better. Northwestern, not a great defense by any means, but I do think their defensive coordinator hire was an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from North Dakota State, Braun, I think he could be a decent defensive coordinator. You guys know North Dakota State's done a lot of winning at the FCS level, and they've always had a good defense. So I'm curious to see what their defense looks like. I would not know what to bet on a side here, guys. This is a super hard game to bet. And as we're talking about it, I'm thinking Sunday afternoon. Sunday is actually my daughter's birthday, and we're going to have her birthday party. I'm like, I think I can stay away from watching this game just so I can make sure I watch the other games later that day. So, you got to build up some good grace and say, I don't have to watch this game. I'll watch the games later. So I'm not going to watch this one. If I had to bet it, I agree with Doug. I would bet the under, hope that this is a snoozer. Northwestern's a bit of a wild card this year. We don't know what to think of them going into it. Rutgers, their offense is always weaker. They do compete hard for Schiano, and I think their defense will be at least decent. So, yes, I think I would lean toward the under as well.
There you go. Doug likes the under. Kyle has a small lean toward the under. Here's my tip on the game. If you're going to watch it, make a large pot of coffee, because otherwise this game is going to be a snooze fest. And I hope that it is, for Doug's sake, because usually when it's a snooze fest, it's a very ugly, low-scoring game, and that's what it looks like on paper anyway. So good stuff, guys. And let's take a look at the next game. Kyle, this is talk about the Rutgers and Northwestern matchup, and then you go to LSU and Florida State. It's like night and day in terms of the magnitude of the game, the quality of competition. LSU, 2.5-point favorite right now, to total 56. The game will be played in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. So what do you got here? I mean, this is a tough call. These teams met in the season opener last year, and Florida State walked away, or LSU, walked away with a narrow win, if I recall correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that isn't the case, but go ahead, Kyle. Tell us what you got here.
Yeah, last year was that really weird game where Florida State and LSU played with a missed field goal on the last play, I believe, or a missed extra point on the last play. I believe Florida State won that game by 1 point. So it was LSU missed the extra point. Florida State got away with the win, even though remember the play calling was so strange at the end of that game where Florida State almost gave the game away. LSU ended up not taking it. But LSU did have a really nice season. They bounced back. Brian Kelly, I'm not a big fan of Brian Kelly, but, he's a good coach. You can't say too much against his coaching ability. He's got a lot of talent to work with there at LSU. This is a LSU team that I think the biggest key to them having success that last year I wasn't sure about was Jaden Daniels was really good in this offense. Before Jaden Daniels at Arizona State, you couldn't figure out if he was like the best bad quarterback you'd ever seen or the worst good quarterback you'd ever seen. It was kind of somewhere in that range. Last year he was very good, very mobile, very good with his legs, was good enough as a passer as well. The thing that interests me here is Norvell versus Kelly is a really good coaching matchup. Both these guys, Norvell gets those guys to play really hard for him. I think that LSU's upside may be a bit higher than Florida State if they play their very best, but I think that Florida State has a higher floor because they're such a veteran team, consistent. That's what makes this a tricky game. I think Jordan Travis is probably underrated as well. If you look at his deep passing ability, I like to look at the analytics a decent amount. He was a 93.2 PFF grade on passes of 20 yards or more. That is one of the best in the country. So he has a good deep ball. It doesn't hurt to have a guy like Johnny Wilson, who's 6'7", to throw the football too deep to get that kind of grade, certainly. But, Travis is a good quarterback who can run as well. I see no real weakness for Florida State. LSU has a couple guys that are out of this game. with Mason Smith and their starting running back as well. So LSU has a bit more question marks for me. LSU, like I said, you could argue that they have the higher upside, that they might have a higher chance of winning it all if they got it all right. But I think that Florida State has the higher floor. It's interesting to see that this line is set almost exactly the same, guys. You guys know these lines have been out for months. Right. This one's been sitting at 2.5 for like two months. Nobody knows. This is probably the right number. The odds makers did a good job. What I'm going to say on this one is, if you think this is a 50-50 game and you think that one team has a little bit higher floor, I'm going to go ahead and take the points in this game because I think it is a very toss-up type game. Somebody could say, well, why 2.5 points doesn't matter? Well, last year they finished with a 1-point spread. I think this is going to be a really close game as well. So the points could matter here in this one. I like Florida State. I think this is a team that comes in with a bit of a chip on their shoulder because when people talk about great teams, they don't usually talk about Florida State anymore. This is their season that they have potential to do something really good. So right from the get-go, Florida State having a good spot for this location, that Florida State should have more fans at this game as well. I think Florida State just has a slight edge, so I'm going to take Florida State here in this one.
Florida State plus the 2.5 over LSU. And Doug, LSU's brought in, since Brian Kelly got there last year, they brought in a lot of good players off the transfer portal, but sometimes that doesn't translate to wins automatically because chemistry needs to be built. This is a great matchup and a very compelling case made by Kyle in terms of upside with Florida State versus talent, overall talent with LSU. Doug, what any take in terms of any feel about this game whatsoever?
Yeah. Real simple for me is look at the two quarterbacks. I like the consistency of the Florida State quarterback just overall. So we're talking about 60 minutes. I think you're going to see he'll be more consistent. Jalen Daniels is a tendency. He makes a lot of interesting and big plays, but he also makes some poor ones. And then when I look at both sides of the ball, the line of scrimmage for both teams, I'm going to give a modest edge to Florida State in both instances. So I would be with Kyle on that one. I'll take the 2.5 on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and I'm going to go the other way. And I'm going to ask Kyle about this because I know what Doug's opinion is. If you like a team that's minus 2.5 and you get 135 or less, you go on the money line. And that's what I'm suggesting. Now, Doug will never do that. And that's okay. That's his philosophy. To me, there's nothing worse if you're laying 2.5, and 1.5, and you win the game by 1 or 2, and you don't cover the game. Again, Kyle, what's your thoughts in regards to, and this is getting a little off topic, but betting strategy, which is important to everybody out there who's listening, and listen closely here because we know we're on both. Me and Doug are on opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of how we handle these situations. Kyle, what do you think? When you like a small favorite of under a field goal and you can get even 140 or less, is it a good idea in your estimation to use the money line, or do you handle it on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a right answer to something like this. Like, oh, you're definitely right here. You're definitely wrong on something like this. I don't like to pay minus 135 or minus 140. I feel like even though it feels better to have that money line, if you lose that much more. I would be more likely to take the plus, like if it was plus 2, plus 2.5, I'd be more likely sometimes to take the plus 120 or something like that instead of taking the spread. I think, especially if I think the game's going to have a lot of variance and maybe that plus money is worth it. Now, as far as this, I would probably not take the minus. Ross, I'm not saying you're wrong in that. I usually don't do that just because it almost kind of feels like buying points, I'm not saying buying points necessarily is always wrong or that paying up for this is necessarily wrong, but I like to just play it out straight. If it loses by half a point, it sucks. You're going to be pissed off about it for sure. But, long term, I like my chances of just going ahead and playing the spread that's there.
Okay, so I'm outnumbered again. It's okay, guys. But this is why the show's great, because we're not always going to agree on every philosophy in every game. And if we did, it's scripted well in advance, and it's going to be boring, and it's going to be fake. And that's not something we want to do on this show. To me, again, 135, 140, 130, 125 in the money line of football is no different than when I don't hesitate to use a money line in baseball on a team that I really like. That's the way I look at it. In terms of if they're going to give me 1.5, 1, 2, 2.5, I don't ever want to play the money line, because if anytime they want to give me anything in terms of points, I'm going to take it. So that's just my philosophy. You heard Doug's in the past, you know what his is, and Kyle voiced his opinion on the subject too. So, which is good. Doug, again, the over and unders this week, we're seeing a little bit. In my estimation, the average totals being a lot lower than we're used to. And when I say a lot lower, 2 or 3 points is a lot lower on average to me. And it's definitely goes hand in hand with the rule changes. What's your take early on? Are you going to be in a wait and see mode in terms of making any totals picks, or are you just going to dabble right in?
First of all, I'm not a big totals player to begin with, so so from that standpoint, I don't know that I can give you a great answer from that standpoint. What I mentioned to you, I believe off air, that I didn't notice, and I did not look at, to be honest with you, I did not look at the number of plays. I know that the presumption was it would be based on how the clock is moving, 6 or 7 plays a game for the college football, fewer plays. Just in the games that I watched, the time of the games ended up relatively close to what I was used to, which is basically, right around 3:25, 3.5 hours from that standpoint. So from that standpoint, but you also mentioned that the odds makers probably, jumping in, and they tend to take care of this stuff right away. And so to me, it's not a big deal. Kyle is a totals expert. He would have a much more informed opinion about this than I would.
Okay, my man, you're the expert. Although I do pretty good in totals. We got in this little bit of discussion before with Jesse and Sean, who claimed you're the best totals guy that ever lived. And I said, well, what about me? And they said, no, Kyle's the guy. He's the guy, Ross. I'm telling you when it comes to totals. So take it away, right up your alley, my man.
Listen, I do love totals, especially in the college sports. College football, college basketball totals have been my specialty. I think that it's too quick to read anything too much from just 7 games. I mean, if you think about the teams that played, I did go back and look. It was about 5 plays less per game than it was last year, which is just slightly less than I thought. It would have been a little bit bigger difference than that. And as far as the time, I will say, Doug, I was disappointed when I saw that the time was almost exactly the same as last year, because basically what that tells you is they're just taking more TV breaks. They're taking longer TV breaks. It's like, okay, so they're going to get their money some way. We're going to get a little bit less football, but it still takes the same amount of time. I hate seeing that. I sound like I'm on my soapbox, so I won't keep going there. But I will say, I think it's too quick to read too much of that. I think it's very interesting this week, Ross, to see those week 1 totals getting bet down about 75% of the time. You usually do not see that throughout the course of the week. Overs usually would take money more than unders would. Most people want to bet overs, but because the clock changes, more people have been saying, and I've heard these people saying, unders are free. Listen to the new rule. Don't think that way. That's not a good way to think at all. The odds makers have known this for many months. And there were several teams that played in week 0 that want to play as slow as possible. I mean, these are teams that we already knew were going to play slow. So let's see what happens when we get the, USF versus Western Kentucky type game, where both teams are going to just be rapid fire going as fast as they can. I want to see how much of a difference it makes like that. To me, I think that there are probably some spots on the board this week where the totals have gotten too low, if anything. So I think blindly just betting the board under after it's already been made adjustments could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and I agree. I still think that you need to understand the average total is going to be about 2.5 points lower than it would be in the same matchup the year before, and they're accounting for the rule changes. Now, in terms of blindly betting on anything, it's never a good idea. Okay, and especially in this case, I mean, what was it? 4-3 to the under, I think you said last week, Doug.
Yep.
So it's a very small sample size. And I don't know what the time was on the Notre Dame Navy game. I can't believe that game went 3 hours and 25 minutes. But
I don't recall specifically, but I mean,
yeah, the only reason I say that is
in the realm.
yeah, the only reason I say that is because Navy, of course, runs the ball constantly. We all know that. Right? That goes for all the service academies, for that matter. And Notre Dame didn't have any quick strike, big play offense. It was methodically going the ball, taking the ball down the field, running it down their throat, and short passing game. And I got to believe that game was shorter, but if the average was 325, that's disappointing to me as well. Because, first of all, the college football halftimes are ridiculous. 20, 25 minutes. That needs to be cut down. But I guess somebody's got to pay the bills, right? So
and you got to get that band on the field too. Don't forget that, Ross.
Yeah, you got to get the band on the field.
Band on there. Let everybody.
Boy. It's
real quick, Ross. Let me
sure,
chime in here.
Absolutely.
Real quick. So I looked. It was 324 was the average game last year, and it was 321 in week 0. So 3 minutes difference. Yeah. You would have thought it would have been a bigger difference than that with the clock rolling. Navy was, I believe, the fastest game, but I mean, Navy, remember before the season, Navy said, we're going to throw it more. We're going to be more open. They're losing badly. And in the third quarter, they had like 3 pass attempts.
Where's this whole new concept that they're going to use on offense and throw more than they have in the past, and different wrinkles in terms of shifting and running the triple option offense. It all looked the same to me. And it didn't seem like they adjusted at all either. I mean, they had a couple shots downfield. And as usual, a Navy quarterback had a guy wide open 45 yards away, and he can't make it reach. He underthrows it. So that's one thing I will give one service academy. And again, I'm getting off topic here, but at least the Air Force is a threat in the air on occasion. They usually have a quarterback that has a Division I FBS type of arm, unlike that at Navy. So. In any event, let me get to my game real quick here, and we'll wrap it up. And I'm going to look at Clemson and Duke. Right now, the Clemson Tigers are a 13-point road favorite in this contest. Despite these teams both playing in the ACC, they haven't met since 2018, and I think that's a good thing for Duke because a lot of those Clemson teams were very good, and last year was no different. They were 11-3. But Duke, how about Duke? After really struggling for a couple of years. New head coach. They go 9-4 a season ago. Much surprise in the ACC, especially considering they were coming off a 3-9 year the year before, and they had lost 8 straight entering the season. So I ran some numbers because it's early, and there's not a lot of data for me to go on, and there's not a lot that I could do with my handicapping software when it comes to game ones. But Clemson, in this point spread parameter since 2018, as a road favorite of 5.5 to 15.5 points, they've gone just 1-5 against the spread, and they actually lost 2 of those games outright. And if it's against a conference opponent, 0-3 against the spread. So they haven't fared well within that point spread parameter as a favorite on the road. Duke, on the other hand, returns 10 players on offense, including their quarterback, Riley Leonard. This is a Duke offense last year. They scored 30 points or more in 9 of 13 games. They amassed 420 yards or more 7 times last year. And Clemson has that reputation of being a shutdown defense, and they were on occasions last year, but I thought they were a little more vulnerable than they have been in past years. And I say that only because they gave up 28 points or more on 5 separate occasions. And they also allowed 375 yards or more in half their games last year, 7 of 14. Duke head coach Mike Elko, he made his reputation as a defensive coordinator at Power 5 schools. I look for the Duke defense to be improved this year. And boy, oh boy, what a terrific job. If you consider the fact that Duke was 1-17 in the ACC the 2 prior years, and he was 5-3 in the ACC last year, a monumental improvement, and what a heroic task to go in there and turn that program around so quickly. All 4 of Duke losses last year, by the way, guys, by 8 points or fewer, and 3 of those losses came by 3 points or less. Duke was 4-0 against the spread as an conference underdog last year, and they won 2 of the 4 games straight up. I'm going to have a small lean here, and I know it's a risky one, but it's a calculated risk. I'm going to take Duke here. I say they stay inside the number against Clemson. I'm not going to be brave enough to call for an outright upset. I just think that Duke has the ingredients and the culture right now that believes that they could stay in this game and possibly win against Clemson. And I'm going to take the points here. Kyle, your thoughts?
So Duke had a great season last year. I think this is a tough side to bet. So I'm going to say that I don't really have a side I really like in this one. I'm going to give you a lean on the total, but Duke had a great season last year. If you look back at who they beat, I mean, who did they beat that was really good? You know, you look through the wins, and it's kind of hard to find. They had a very easy schedule last year, very easy. It's interesting that they win 9 games last year, then their win total was 6.5 this year, and it gets smashed to the under. You see a bunch of juice on the under. This schedule is so much more difficult for Duke this year. I think the way I would describe it is Duke is a better team than they were last year. They'd be favored if you played this year's version versus last year's, but they're going to win less games than they did last year.
That's fair.
So as far as whether they can win the game, I definitely have my doubts as to whether they can win the game. The talent disadvantage is pretty significant. Clemson's question mark on defense is the secondary. The front 7 is excellent. They're very good defensive line, very good linebackers. They gave up too many plays, big plays in the secondary last year. So we'll see if Riley Leonard can take advantage of that. I think, this is a big season for Clemson because they haven't quite been up to that level that they were a few years ago. Their upside potential is there this year. Let's see with Riley coming in as the new offensive coordinator, if they can take that step forward again for Dabo Swinney and company. I think the thing that I would look toward here in this one is the under, if I had to bet it, thinking that Elko is just a fantastic defensive mind. I think even if he doesn't have great talent, his defense is going to play very well. I think Clemson's defense is still ultra talented. Neither team plays exceptionally fast. Clemson might speed up a bit this year, but I think under 55.5 would be my lean in this game.
There you go. He's a totals guru. That's Kyle Hunter, and he has a lean toward the under 55.5 in the game. My official pick is on Clemson plus 13, or excuse me, Duke plus 13 over Clemson. Doug, am I giving Duke's season a year ago and some of the things I said, am I giving them too much credit against a team on paper they're definitely not as talented as?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think, Clemson on the road the last couple of years, in many different situations, hasn't been very impressive. I don't know exactly what their ATS record, has been the last couple of years on the road, but just for what I recall. And so from that standpoint, I think that Duke can hang around here. I'd be tempted to take them in the first half, but what I'm going to suggest instead is that I think there's enough offense where they can create some situations here. Going to have to take some shots, basically, is what Kyle's suggesting against the secondary for Clemson. I think they could possibly hit a couple of those. And at the same time, I think the Duke defense will come up with enough different plays. I'm going to wait, though, and from that standpoint. And 13, I think it was 13.5. I think it went down to 13. I'm going to wait till Monday to look at and see if we can catch 14. I'm not saying I wouldn't take the 13 or 13.5, but if I can get to 14, I'd rather sit and wait it out, okay, and let everything else happen during the weekend. And when the focus is just on that game on Monday night, we'll see what the line does.
Yeah, Clemson scores 30 points or more in 13 of 14 games last year, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not that, it's pretty close. And Dabo Swinney says, I didn't like the lack of creativity and the lack of flair we had offensively. So they bring in Coach Elliott, which Kyle brought up. And you can't undervalue that, because where he came from, TCU, he took what looked like a very maybe above average, slightly above average offense on paper last year and turned it into a juggernaut. And Max Duggan turned him into a quarterback that is going to be on an NFL roster at some point if he's not already this year. I think he made the roster he got drafted on, but I'm not sure on that. But any event, all good stuff, guys. Let's get right to what we may have coming up this weekend. Kyle, I'll start with you. Over at gamblersworld.net, what could the folks expect from Kyle Hunter, and how has he been doing of late? Any good streaks you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've done pretty well in baseball here lately, 7-2 in the last 9 baseball plays. I don't put out a ton of baseball plays at the end of the season. I think it's a bit tricky when you start having all these call-ups and big spreads. I do have 5 football plays up for college football this weekend. Last year went 57-24 in college football. I'm not saying I'm going to do that again. You guys know how I am. But it was a great season. I did lose my first play last week on week 0. So try to have a good week 1 here with 5 totals plays up on the board.
57-24 in college football last season, folks. We talked about Sean Higgs, 64% in the NFL. Look at Kyle Hunter. Okay. I don't know what that equates to. It's in the high 60s, low 70s, 57. Yeah. Okay. That's a phenomenal year. And you know what the best part about that is you get $100 off any football subscription plan, NFL, college football, combination thereof, NFL, college football. Up until midnight tonight, we extended it 1 day. And I rattled off a couple guys that had great seasons last year, Kyle being one of them. Take advantage of that, folks. All right. Doug, what do you got going on at Doc Sports, my friend?
Well, I also have 5 plays in college football going this weekend, and my card will start Friday night and then go 3 plays on Saturday, which includes a 6-unit best bet on Saturday, and then 1 on Sunday as well. And it won't be the Rutgers total, by the way. It's just to let everybody know. But so I'll be ready to go for this weekend. Did a lot of homework on this. Week 1's always a little tricky. I don't give out a ton of plays normally on the first week. Just kind of get some information. Basically, is what it amounts to. Baseball still 38-21 run the last 32 days. That's good. Nothing for Thursday. Short card. I'll be back this weekend, and I agree with Kyle. As we hit to September, it's time to lower the number of plays that you have, but by and large, because I say things do get a little bit trickier. But red hot in MLB props, 11-4 the last 15, 6 out of the last 7. I'll for sure have something on Friday on that one, going through the various options to me. And I'm looking forward to getting another winner. If you just hop over to Doug Upstone at Doc Sports, see if I can get you some money for this upcoming weekend.
There you go. Doug Upstone over at DocSports.com. And that site has been around for 53 years. And we've been around for a while, all 3 of us, and we know the importance of longevity in this industry. It speaks volumes. You could find me over at gamblersworld.net or rbwins.com. Preferably right now, gamblersworld.net, folks. They're our sponsor. And again, all 3 of my football packages, $100 off. I have 3 college football games up or picks, winning picks for Saturday. I have 1 for tonight. If you see this in time, I have the Thursday night winner between Utah and Florida. I may add 1 more game on Saturday that's yet to be seen. And my college football, 18-8 right now since the end of last year on a nice 69% run. Major League Baseball, 29-15 since August the 4th over at gamblersworld.net, and the number 1 overall capper right now at gamblersworld.net since the site's inception. So take advantage of my picks, and you get our guarantee that if you don't win, you don't make a profit. We will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. That's good for all single game, multi-game packages, as well as subscription plans of 30 days or less. And once again, folks, we'd like to wish each and every one of you all the best. One quick reminder, there's a like button on the bottom of your screen. Click that like button. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the work, time, and effort that we put in to these podcasts, and we deeply appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. All of you new subscribers out there, thank you for joining in, and we appreciate each and every one of you. That is what makes this show successful. All right. Until tomorrow morning, which we will be going live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time with Jesse Shule. with Sean Higgs, with Paul Bovey. Paul's another new guy that we're bringing aboard. So again, folks, questions and answers, fire away tomorrow morning, starting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Of course, that show will also be on archive. Until next time, for Doug Upstone, Kyle Hunter, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless.